Wow. Okay, guys. What's up, everybody? My name is Richard Terrell. Welcome to DO Live. DO Live is a daily stream in which we talk about game design, and we normally hang out on our Discord and we talk about game design all day, but these are the streams in which I talk about something specific, maybe something interesting from the day, but this entire week and the next week and last week is devoted to Smash Brothers, so I made a huge list of topics and I'm taking everything one topic at a time. So you can find us on our website at designoriented.net. We have a blog, the Discord, this stream, of course, and we put these videos up on YouTube. It all goes by Design Oriented, and you can find our Discord link on the Twitter page. So I added two elements to my Smash resume that I kind of went over last time. The last two are I played over 5.4 thousand hours of Smash across all the Smash games, all four of them. And I created a board video game hybrid out of Smash Brawl, but we can talk about that later. That's pretty much the subject of its own episode, so we're going to get right over to these topics and pick one of these to talk about today. Let me just make a note of Smash board somewhere. Smash board. That's the name of my board game. Clever. Okay. So I want to do something pretty simple. I still don't have the visuals that I want to organize for fleshing out the characters. Maybe I'll touch on a character or two at some point. Let's talk about Spiral Tumble, and let's talk about I can't cover Dacus without getting Brawl. Run cancels, I'm not even sure what that is, but somebody suggested that I talk about it. So let's talk about Spiral Tumble and maybe some other subtle systems that are in Smash Brothers. What's another subtle one that a lot of people don't know about? Rage is going to be its own episode. I really don't want to tackle that in a short period of time. So let's talk about Spiral Tumble, and maybe I'll just hit a different character. Let's talk about Spiral Tumble and Dash Dancing. That's fine. And pretty much dashing in general. So dashing is, as we said before, is a pretty big part of Smash. Dashing is one thing that you do a lot in the ground game, and it helps you get around, and a lot of times, depending on how committed you are to your dash, it kind of shapes the metagame from there, because you can't really close in on your opponent and do something meaningful if you only have a handful of things that you can do out of that. So it kind of makes you more predictable when you dash, and if your opponents can move more freely in the air, then you can easily chase them on the ground. You have some different issues in the metagame bins and different ways for when players sort of get around that basic design reality. So dashing is kind of an important concept to Smash. We talked a little bit about course and fine control, and how with dashing, it's course control. You kind of commit yourself to a direction. You commit your momentum in that direction as well, and you're limited to your options. So you're kind of saying, instead of controlling the analog movement of my character for a period of time and being able to adjust that, I'm going to commit to this sort of digital, discrete, set time, set speed kind of movement, at least until you have other options like jumping, shielding, or doing whatever else out of your dash. In Melee, you could cancel your dash into a crouch. So you can dash into a down tilt. You can dash into a jump canceled grab, which gives you your standing grab animation instead of the dash grab. And of course, the dash grab animation is longer. It's slower to come out and slower to recover. So being able to dash forward really fast into a standing grab it's just something that everybody did in Melee. We kind of discovered that tech pretty early in the history of Melee, so it's just kind of something that everybody does. I don't even think I've seen a dash grab in a long time. I'm not even sure why anybody would dash grab. Maybe Samus has like a very distinct use for her dash grab that she can do that's separate from her jump cancel standing grab, or maybe she can't even do the jump cancel grab, but too bad for Samus. Let me just boot this up and show you a little bit what we're talking about here. Cool. So dashing and Dancer, Comet and Vixen, Blitzen, never learned their names. Let's go to solo and let's go to training mode. I spend so much time in training mode, I love it here. So let's talk about Greninja, Mega Man? I want to do Villager. If I can find Villager. Nest, you're not Villager. Here we go. And let's do this character as Bowser. So, in a lot of what you do in Melee, a lot of what you do in Brawl, a lot of what you do in, you know, Smash 4, every single Smash game, it's movement based. So, one thing that we realized early on is that, you know, instead of being sort of locked into just left and right movement, like in Street Fighter and occasionally jumping in Smash, we can double jump and we can fly into the sky if we wanted to, and we can fall down below the stage, we can run off the stage and attack and come underneath. So, except for I ran out of fuel. Smash Brothers is all over the place, and one thing we realized is that instead of borrowing directly from the language of Street Fighter, which involves a lot of zoning, like very discrete, very clear and effective zoning with fireballs and things like that, instead of focusing on anti-airs with like dragon punches and other invincible DPs and things like that, instead of cornering people by walking them into a corner and they just have limited movement, Smash is just so much more. I mean, its base is centered around this double jump and returning to the stage and edge guarding and knockback. So you just need a whole lot more space to play around, and that's one of the things I love about Smash. I mean, you can fight crazy up in the sky and below the stage and tech hits and fight underneath and chase people underneath the stage, and all that's a legitimate strategy space to explore. But as far as how dashing plays into that, you know, Street Fighter, a lot of the ways that characters make themselves harder to hit is by playing footsies, and a lot of times they'll walk forward and backwards, and since their character doesn't turn around like in Smash Brothers, you know, they're able to very easily just like do this, and this is really hard in Smash. I told you before, walking is difficult in Smash. It's because doing any kind of accurate, quick, repeated inner analog stick, can I show you? Inner analog stick motion like that is just really difficult. Like this, I'm trying to just walk back and forth quickly, and Villager is occasionally dashing, and then if you try to do it any softer, he just doesn't move that much. That's why this little spinning dance is kind of fun to do in Smash. So walking is not a thing. So in order to get, I mean, in Street Fighter, oftentimes they walk back and forth like pixels, right? Just to get barely out of range of the opponent's attack. Like this should be out of range, yeah. But if I keep doing it, he's going to slowly walk forward and get in range. Maybe this is in range? No. It's a little large. There you go. So like, yeah, in Street Fighter they know all those distances and they'll play to those distances and they'll try to bait each other. Smash Brothers is different. Inherently, we take up more of the screen. Our attacks are about short hop, full hop, off the stage, returning, and omnidirectional kind of stuff. So movement is how we actually even start filling out the space with our attacks in very basic ways. So that makes it a lot harder to hit each other, right? Instead of a character standing still, they're going to be jumping and moving away and attacking while retreating. And in Street Fighter, a character that can jump and throw a projectile was considered broken and kind of, in Street Fighter 2, Akuma, and just kind of wreck the game. And characters that can retreat like this and throw fireballs or whatever, kind of hard to deal with in Street Fighter. Guile that backs up and throws sonic booms forward and recovers fast after him is really annoying to deal with. But in Smash Brothers, almost everyone can do those kinds of basic zoning tactics, even if they don't have a projectile, like backups, back air, like dash away, back air, short hop, whatever. And movement is just more tightly woven into the very basic way that we engage each other in Smash. We have to move all over the place, and the freedom to roll like this is a big deal. You know, it allows us to move more freely on the stage, and we have to actually chase our opponents a lot more instead of walking them down. And stopping people from air dodging and stopping people from double jumping, it's just a lot of space. Now, dashing plays into that as well, because the ability to dash away from your opponent is something that's also very foreign to Street Fighter. You can walk backwards in Street Fighter and you can jump back, but to keep your full movement speed in the opposite direction, it just means that everything about this game, we're going to have to invent our own way of understanding its pros and cons and how it fits in with a competitive, strategic-based fighting system. So you'll see a lot of this in Smash where players try to sort of control the stage, as they say, and even though standing right here versus here doesn't look like it's that big of a deal, you know, one roll back and you're back to the ledge. One roll forward, you'll be right here in the middle, and if I'm holding the middle, you know, that's a bad thing for you to do. So it may not be as clear as Street Fighter, like, oh, he walked him 3 steps closer to the edge, this is bad, but it's a lot looser, but the effects are still there, right? You can still feel yourself in the corner, you can still feel that you have limited options or less options, and you know, Smashers kind of play off of those situations a lot more fluidly. I think that's another good reason to understand why in Smash players have to players like to go for more reads and long-term sort of conditioning than you do in Street Fighter. In Street Fighter, they have really precise techniques. They have option selects, and they have 2-in-1s, and they have all these sort of setups that involve knowing really well what attacks are going to come at them in this tiny space between them, and then how they're going to take advantage of those precise timings and spacing differences. In Smash, you know, dynamic knockback changes a lot of things constantly. DI changes a lot of things. Characters are very different from each other because of their hitboxes, their weight. Even throwing someone in Smash, if you have a weight-based throw, your character can't begin to chase them if you throw somebody heavy like Bowser, and you're like, oh, your character's still stuck to the ground, right? Yeah, so like little subtle things are constantly changing in Smash Brothers, so that's another good reason why players opt to just kind of go with the flow and play by feel instead of trying to work out any very specific counter strategies. So you can consider dashing. It's a twofold problem, right? When you give somebody the ability to do more attacks at a dash, you also give them the ability to retreat using that same mechanic. So even though it seems like, oh, you should be able to do attacks out of your dash and chase people down, I gotta chase people down, well, other people are going to use that same dashing speed to run away from you, and character speed differences are a lot more prominent in a game like Smash. I feel like Kirby has such a hard time chasing people in Smash. When they take to the air and they're faster than Kirby in the air, and then they land on the ground, they're faster than Kirby on the ground, and Kirby's attacks don't come out particularly fast, and he doesn't have a lot of range, and he doesn't have a lot of disjoints, so a lot of characters can just run away from Kirby just by jumping around, and that's something that I've always found irritating, always. And that's just like that twofold problem that I was just talking about. Sure, you can give people the ability to aggress in Smash, but everything is movement based. So if you give them the ability to aggress with movement, you also give them the ability to retreat with that same movement, and that's kind of hard to deal with. So I know, thinking about Smash Ultimate, that's kind of crazy to think about. One thing I don't like about dash dancing, which I can't really demonstrate because I don't have my melee hooked up, because I don't have one on me, is that or the one thing I liked in particular about Brawl is that you couldn't dash immediately into a shield. That when you dash forward, you kind of commit yourself into less defensive options, so that if you're going to be aggressive, you need to go ahead and be aggressive instead of being aggressive with a defensive option, which is kind of something that people remark about and don't like about Smash 4. Run up shield is so powerful, right? Like, oh, run up shield, run up shield. So what I don't like about dash dancing as well, it's a lot of sort of erratic high movement that mostly makes the speed and spacing differences between the characters even more extreme, right? So the characters that are fast and can dash dance better, like with a bigger distance, have the ability to make themselves even harder to hit, and the only characters that can challenge them are characters with, you know, projectiles or an equivalent amount of speed, and it's really hard to deal with. So again, slower characters and mid-tier characters in Melee kind of got left in the dust when all the other characters were moving so much faster. So whenever you talk about movement in Smash, it's not just about all the things that you want to do offensively. It's also things you want to do defensively. And I found dash dancing to be very annoying as a Kirby player in Melee. And the solution to that isn't just, well, speed up Kirby, because again, you don't want to create the problem and chase it with the same solution. Like, you got to understand how these pieces fit together. How do I think it affects the games, especially Melee, relative to everything else? So, and again, like, the only reason people, or like, I mean, in and of itself, thinking about how dash dancing affected Melee is kind of an interesting case study, because before we realized, wait, like, we didn't really have a choice. It's in the game, we had to use it, and it was fun. But then thinking back on it and thinking how it relates to other Smashes, like, if you want the ability in neutral to sort of mix up your movement and how you're going to attack, well, you can do that without having dash dancing. You don't have to put something in the game that makes the screen like zoom in and out at a rapid rate to make your character like basically turn into a smoke cloud and look like they're looking in 3 different directions at once. If you ever see Marth dash dancing perfectly in Melee, it's like 3 distinct images, one of him dashing left to right and standing upright. So like, you don't need all that in order to achieve the functional result of having some movement-based options. And I think what you gain with things like auto-canceling, like I explained in the last video, where you want to move into a lane and know your options of how this turns into offense and how you can keep your movement up by using your auto-cancel frames instead of hitting your landing lag. Like, all that makes it to where you can start fitting in your offense and understanding how that relates to your opponent's defensive and spatial options, like puzzle pieces, and it just kind of clicks and it falls into place. And then from there you can weigh out the pros and cons of your options. So yeah, in general, I like, for movement in Smash, I like jumping. I like characters that, you know, float through the air and aim their attacks well using the analog movement, whether it's left, right, or very precisely fast falling. That's something that I really want to see more of, and I don't want to see as much of this, right? Which makes a lot less sense to me. It looks a lot less like the games that these characters were inspired by, and it just seems like an extreme part of Melee's movement that just makes it harder for all these other parts of Smash. It makes it harder to express these other parts. Like, again, like what I said with aerial moves in Melee, they're so powerful that you have less of a reason to use the special moves. And likewise, if you make too much of your movement powerful, you have less of a reason to use your other defensive options like shield or rolling, and then you have less of a reason to use your attacks in a defensive way, like sticking out a tilt to stop a tilt, right? Or sticking out an aerial, or trying to figure out how your moves fit into the sort of puzzle piece spatial interactions, instead of just like, well, how about I just dash back, right? Or how about I just use movement? It's all a balancing act, and certainly I think the reason for some of Melee's uncapped and most extreme techniques is the reason also why it has such a small viable character base, right? If you make your game too much about speed and disjoints, right, then only so many characters are going to be good, and that makes all the other characters sort of obsolete. Certainly it's a really complex problem to break down, but that's one we can take a closer look at when we talk a little bit more about balance later. That's dash dancing. And I want to talk about Spiral Tumble in Smash 4. Spiral Tumble and fast falling, actually. Cool. Okay, so one thing a lot of people don't realize is in Smash 4, when you fast fall like this, you see a little spark. I can zoom in and slow it down so you can see it. Jump, and right when you hit down, spark, the little white spark appears, which indicates like, oh, you fast fell, cool. But a lot of people don't realize is that after you fast fall and do an aerial move, it breaks the fast fall. We call that fall break. We made a Tech of the Week video about it. So what's cool about that is, besides just left and right analog movement and being very careful about the horizontal placement of your character, you now have one more degree of control for your vertical speed, right? And it's not just like normal fall speed and fast fall speed, and you have two different speeds. Now you can fast fall multiple times. You saw 2 sparks right there? I'll show you. I'll jump off Bowser, and then I'll fast fall, neutral air, fast fall. You see the 2 sparks? Jump off Bowser, fast fall, neutral air, fast fall. There's 2 sparks there. So you can actually do some neat things where, with the extra control, you can be very precise about where you land your attacks. So you can fast fall into an aerial attack, and right when you aerial attack, you go back to normal fall speed, and you can drift extra hard. That means you can more precisely get into the spaces you want to get into without sacrificing horizontal versatility like that. Being able to quickly get down and hit Bowser in the node and DI away, that allows me to escape some of his... Oops, no! Some of his potential counterattacks. Oops, that's not a neutral air. Yeah, that's funny. Bowser's not doing anything because it's Bowser. Nice. And I was too far away from him to get hit by his up B when he tried to do that in response. So that's like a really subtle thing. With floatier characters, it's more noticeable. With characters that have aerial moves that wrap up faster in midair, you can actually fast fall, you know, as many times as you can sort of do aerials, right? I think Pac-Man is one of the best examples of that. I'll show you. Let's go Pac-Man. Pac-Man's forward air is one attack in the game that wraps up start to finish, one of the quickest. It has, you know, decent landing lag, not very good like recovery when he forward airs into the ground. So most of the time you want to, you know, be very careful about how many kicks you do. But when you jump, I can fit. Oops, not that. Forward air, fastball, forward air, fastball, forward air, fastball. And you can see 4 sparks right there because he can, you know, his air move ends and you can re-fastball every time you go back to neutral. Why can't I get a forward air? So yeah, that's something that's pretty subtle. Not much more to say about that. So now I'm going to move on to Spiral Tumble, which is this interesting property that happens in Smash Brothers. So I'll show you here. Oops. When your opponent gets to 100 damage after the damage that you give it when you attack it, so let's say he's at 99 or 98, and you kick him, Bowser flies like that from my forward tilt. But there's a random chance, I think 1 in 3, where he'll go into a Spiral Tumble. Let's see it. There, there. And that Spiral Tumble has more sort of horizontal and low knockback. So there's a better chance that he will hit the ground instead of fly in the air if you get the Spiral Tumble. And the cool part about this property is he can't tech the hit as long as he hits the ground in Spiral Tumble. So there's a way to like hit him very softly, and that's not it. And if he hits the ground, he can't tech it. And if he can't tech it, that means the opponent is vulnerable to all kinds of follow-up attacks, which means you could probably get a kill if you do the setup properly, right? And that's what's really interesting about Spiral Tumble. A lot of people don't like it because they say it's random. And you're like, oh, why have a 1/3 chance that you die? Well, one, it's not a 1/3 chance you die. It's 1/3 chance that you can do a very specific follow-up. But you have to be looking for that follow-up. And that doesn't mean that even if you don't get the follow-up, the opponent can just the opponent's going to get away scot-free. There's ways to reactively cover a lot of options, and a lot of people just get kind of mad that one of them seems to be too effective. So what I like about Spiral Tumble is in Smash 4, forward tilts are pretty useless. Like Mario's forward tilt, especially. Like, look at this stupid move. It comes out fast, but it's not strong, and it doesn't have a lot of range. And even if he angles it, like, that's not a lot. So, one cool thing you can do is whenever your opponent doesn't tech with somebody like Mario, you can potentially lock them in place by catching up to him and jabbing him like that. Well, it should have been locked, and then you can follow up with a charged smash, which will almost guarantee kill them if they're at 100. Like that. So I'm using a hip check, which is a technique that we also did in the Tech of the Week video, where you reverse forward tilt, and then you can hit Donkey Kong basically underneath his jaw, because Mario's so short, so funny. Boom. And then you have just enough room to dash forward using a, one of these. What do they call it? It's like a slow run skid stop, but off of a dash, and you can go into your neutral jab. See, like, people are freaking out in Smash Ultimate because you can dash into a jab, but you can pretty much do that in Smash 4. Like, I made a video about it, we talked about it, and people are like, oh, I don't care. Then all of a sudden you put it into a new game and say, hey, we added this. It's almost the same system. The only difference is in Smash 4, when you dash, maybe I can show this, you have to dash and like slightly move up or slightly move the control stick down in order to put your character into neutral. Otherwise, if you just try to do the same timing, Mario's going to do a dash attack and you don't want that. So like one slight controller movement difference is just to ensure you get a neutral move. And then you can pretty much dash into an up tilt, right? You can dash into a down smash. And like I showed you before, the slow run, look how fast Mario can go into a slow run down smash. It's still pretty fast, right? So, I don't know. There's a lot more to talk about in terms of why people don't use the things you give them and how hard it is to learn new things when they've been ingrained in a certain playstyle for so long. But here's what I like about Spiral Tumble. It gives new utility to weaker moves, and it's a deadly utility. So like heavyweights, they're pretty cool because they don't die as soon as a lot of other characters. So you get them at 98. Donkey Kong is still pretty healthy, as they would say. But because of Spiral Tumble and certain moves of Mario's that would be weak or too weak to be any use otherwise, you could bank and be like, I'm gonna, instead of going for a down tilt, up air, up B, and getting like, you know, anywhere from 14 to 14 damage, you can just try to bank on this Spiral Tumble forward tilt and then maybe get a kill, right? You have a 1/3 chance that he can't tech it at all, and then that doesn't mean he's gonna, like, he could just not tech it even if it doesn't Spiral Tumble and you can finish him off. So because that happens at exactly 100 damage, heavyweights, when they're relatively healthy, could be a lot closer to death than a lightweight character, because at 98 a lightweight character would fly so much higher from this move and wouldn't be susceptible to falling on the ground because they're lighter. And even if they don't get the Spiral Tumble, you can follow that up with the smash if they miss the tech. And the cool thing about missing a tech is it's reactable. Like, I can react to Donkey Kong not teching that. Let's see if I can do it on attack. Yeah, and react it and then follow it up with a smash. So if he Spiral Tumbles, I can react to that. If he misses the tech, I can react to it. And even if he techs it, I'll be right in place to follow the tech chase. Oh, he missed. That was Spiral Tumble. That's funny. I should have jabbed him. See, he went too high there, so I knew he wasn't going to survive that one. Jabs are too weak in Smash 4. I like how they do good damage and they come out fast, but maybe shields are too strong, that's what I'll say. You can't really play around shields with jabs too well. But people do it, you know, I'm not that good. Oh, you missed your tech. You're dead. Like something simple like that. So a lot of people in Smash have a bad habit of using smashes in neutral when they really want to get a kill. But there's so many safer interesting ways to utilize some of your weaker moves, and that's another reason why I think Smash 4 is super deep, and we're not gonna get to the bottom of its depth before Smash 5 comes out. And since Smash 5 is so similar, it's gonna take us years to plumb those depths. But that's just something I thought was really interesting about this game. You can see Spiral Tumble happen with other attacks too, if they're strong enough. So that's why at about 120, I think I say neutral air weak hit with Mario against a heavyweight like Donkey Kong can potentially send him. It's 130. Yeah. So now at 130, instead of fishing for smashes, you might want to try one of these where you're like, oh, neutral air, and if you hit it, you know, Donkey Kong flies at such a low angle that he may not tech just based on the surprise factor. But there's always a chance that because he's above 100, he'll go into a Spiral Tumble, and that'll be a guaranteed kill. Guaranteed. Oh, I missed the F smash. I should have just up smashed anyway. Nope, not guaranteed. Guaranteed. Oh, watch out. So, what's cool about that is a lot of fighting games are played on the very cusp of human reaction times, and you see games with Street Fighter, players are a lot more competent and capable of playing with super sharp reactions and then reacting to a handful of cases. Like, if he does this, I'll do this. If he does this, I'll do this. If he does this, I'll do this. And they can actually play competently at that level. Now, I know Smash is a lot more open, a lot harder to sort of see what's going on with all these various movement and defensive, roll, dodge, attack options, and it's a lot more fluid because it's an analog fighter and the characters are a lot smaller on the screen. So I don't blame Smashers for not being able to do it quite like the Street Fighter players, but we can get a lot closer than we are now. I can't believe how many people you can confirm this hit and then decide whether or not you want to smash, right? And if the opponent is techs it, which maybe this computer will tech it. Oh, he punched me. Oh, Spiral Tumble confirmed, and then went into my smash. Like, you can react to this stuff. You can react. Gimmer had an interesting video about reacting to a situation where Fox follows up with an up smash, and yes, a lot of these situations are reactable. You can react to whether or not they tech, left, right, and place with a combination of visual stimulus and audio cues. And you should be able to play like much tighter, despite how in Smash it looks like a lot of times they have tons of options. Like, oh, he hit me. You should be able to play tighter than this. And I know there's a ton of characters, and it's a flurry of all these buttons and speed, but that's the hope. That's the hope. With many more years of metagame development, people will get so used to the current strategies of Smash that they're like, well, what else can we do? And when that's the case, you'll have so much pressure going forward that at low damages you can do these crazy combos and potentially get these setups, and at high damage you can potentially go for these weak hit moves that have these crazy setups, and at medium damage you have these other moves that could potentially get kills and go into these setups. And ideally, you'd have kill setups and amazing combos at every percentage for every stage and every character combination. And that's kind of the beauty of Smash. It's not a game where everyone has to get their opponents to 150 damage before killing them. You can make a way happen out of no way. Like at 50 damage, Donkey Kong gets knocked back from Mario's back air at a low angle like this. If he's too close to the edge, so right here, it's good. And you can react to the fact that he didn't get his tech and then finish him off. I don't know why that didn't work. Stuff like this. Almost killed Donkey Kong. He's still quite heavy. But you can imagine if you had a setup this solid, that potentially going for moves that send Donkey Kong into this low tumble would be a really good idea, like that. And you lock him and kill him. So like, it's a simple risk-reward evaluation and applying these simple techniques. I know landing a hit on competitive players and top players is anything but simple, but it's kind of interesting to think that our current metagame is composed of a lot of players that took their strategies and their tactics in a whole different direction than sort of thinking like this and playing like this, and basically being inspired by locking down all the different possibilities and setups their opponent has instead of just focusing on reads and flow and momentum. But we'll take a closer look at the metagame another day. Those are just a few interesting systems in Smash that I think are pretty cool. And Smash 4 has so many subtleties that not a lot of people talk about. I mean, people complain about Rage too much to fully enjoy the art of Spiral Tumble. But that's all I wanted to talk about for today. So if you have any questions, send them in to me on Twitter. Get to me on the Discord. Any way you can, just let me know what you're thinking about Smash, and I'll try to include it on one of these streams. So until tomorrow, I'm streaming about 10 p.m. every night for weekdays. I'll see you guys next time.